I appreciate you guys joining with us today. I'm excited to present on some things that we see working in text and voice with sales today in 2026. There have been things that have changed over the last few years, if you've noticed. With technology, there's advancement that helps things become easier and it makes things harder for other people. And if you're in sales, you know what that means. So we're going to talk about what are the things that we're seeing that have changed the way that we do sales, and how we can impact those negative changes to make it a positive for you and your business. All right. So first, let me start with this. I had written this different. I will admit to this. I first wrote, your reps aren't losing deals because they aren't working hard enough. Someone on my team says we should add the word only, because sometimes we are losing deals because people aren't working hard enough. But we're going to focus today on what we can change regarding the technology side of things. Why are we losing deals? Why are we not having enough conversions? And a lot of the strategy and focus today will be on inbound leads and how we are converting them to customers. So pay attention there. We could talk about outbound for cold outreach later. If we have time, we can take questions on that. That is a different ball game, different animal. So we'll talk about that another time. So one
Trent,
of the
hey,
things that we're seeing,
just to
was that?
stop you real quick, we're still on the first slide. I think you gotta unpause the
Oh,
screen share.
is mine paused? It says it's paused. Okay, I apologize, guys. Let me hop out here. Now is it sharing?
Yep, now you're in the right spot.
Okay, I apologize. Oh wait, now it went right back to paused. I'm not sure what I'm doing here, Devin. I've never had it auto pause on me because as soon as I went to full screen, it auto paused. Yeah, you guys can't see my screen now, can you?
We can see the you're losing deals because
Yeah, but
conversations
I'm on
there.
the next. So you can see it?
Yep,
Okay. Yeah, but I went to the next one. You can't see where's your pipeline leaking. All right.
nope.
I'm gonna have to exit out of this. We're gonna have to do this the click way like this because for some reason I'm not sure what my settings are with GoToWebinar, but it's now not letting me share the screen as soon as I go full screen. I'm gonna see if I can change my settings here. Content only. Hmm. All right. I'm going to try it one more time. If it says the same thing, we'll go back to this where I'll click through the side here. But the main thing that we've noticed is that people aren't always losing deals just because of poor reps that aren't following up with people. It's often because they're um, they're losing deals because, oh man, it just did the same thing. I'm going to exit out of here, guys. I'm not going to deal with this anymore. Um, for me, this is a frustrating thing with technology is I practice and it works great, and then I go to webinar, so I go to meeting and it changes things up. All right, now I can't even hit the button to stop the share. There we go. Okay, so back to it. We see that oftentimes we're losing deals because the conversations aren't happening, not just because people aren't making the app for the outbound calls. So I'll give you an example here. What we see, you can have 100 leads come in, 80 calls placed, and we're not going to talk about number of contact attempts in this scenario here. Just like a general 100 leads come in, 80 calls placed, and you get 8 conversations out of that. Let's say that 10% of those people answer, 3 of those turn into opportunities, and maybe one of those closes. Maybe you have a higher demo show up rate, a higher close rate. And a lot of you probably sell in different ways. Some are in person, some are in Zoom, some are by phone. But the reality is that there's conversations that have to happen that lead to opportunities, lead to closed deals. And a lot of times those are scheduled appointments that fall through. So we're going to talk about different ways that we see things that are dropping off. But most often we see the biggest cliff is the conversations from number of leads to number of conversations you have. So if I'm generating a lead, if someone interested in my product or service based on my lead magnet or whatever I use to draw them in, and that inbound lead opts in and I start to reach out to them, if I'm only talking to 8 to 10% of them, I'm leaving a lot of opportunity in the other 90%. And that's what's happening quite often across the board. A lot of organizations we talk to, that is the big constraint is how do I get a hold of more people so I can properly present them our opportunity. Now, if you're doing low ticket sales, this probably isn't as relevant. Usually you're not spending the time and money and effort to do outbound calls and try to get into conversation to close them. But for high ticket sales, this is primarily where we're focused. Whether you're coach, consultant, agency, you have a product that's a high ticket product or has a longer sales cycle. All these are relevant, what we're going to talk about today in those types of situations. So the thing that we want to focus on is where is the pipeline leaking? So each of you can answer this. We'll have Devin and Brett give us the kind of like where we should focus at the end here. We'll have some Q&A at the end. But what is the reason that you're noticing that your sales pipeline is leaking? Is it low call connect rates? We hear that a lot. Is it no shows on your booked meetings or people just don't show up? They booked the meeting. They said they made the intent to actually show up for a meeting by booking, but didn't show up. Or is it inconsistent follow-up? Do you just not have processes and procedures in place so that the sales process has follow-up built into it, or are leads aging and going cold? And I think this one, D, applies to all businesses, but what is your main one you feel like is causing the biggest loss of opportunity for you right now? So reply in the chat, A, B, C, or D. We'll put those together and find out what is the most common with this group. And if you're not on this call live, if you're doing a recording and watching the recording, answer that question still just so you're aware of where that is for you, and we'll talk about that, and maybe some things will come into your mind to help you solve that problem. Um, so this is where we see that the pipeline dies off. There's a few different spots, and we're going to address these three today. But one is how many people are contacted that we actually have had opt-in, and they're market qualified lead. There's someone that's interested in our product or service. We know that they're a potential buyer. And most of the often we see that companies get about 40%, 30% ever will have contact made of all those leads. Now, I gave you an example of I make 80 calls, 200 leads come in, make 80 calls, 8 answer. That might be my first contact attempt. But after a couple of weeks of following up, I might get up to 30 to 40% that answer. So we're going to assume 35% that we contact. That means the other 65% have had no contact, no communication, not a text interaction, not a voice conversation, not replied to an email. And so these are people that we're missing out on because there's no contact made. The next cliff we see is when people set an appointment but don't show up. And usually you'll see about a sit rate of about 60 to 70%, meaning that there's still 4 out of 10 people that don't ever show up for their appointment. And it's surprising that how few companies have a process for making sure that those that don't show up for the appointment are re-engaged and can rebook. There's a lot of opportunity in those that went so far as having a conversation or clicking a link in an email, setting an appointment with you, and then not showing up and then just dropping them. So the no-show leak is pretty big for a lot of companies. And then the third one we're going to talk about today is the 90% that are the um, leads that don't convert, that have an appointment, have a proposal, maybe you're higher than this. This says 90% leak, but maybe you're like, we're a pretty good closing organization. We qualify very well. We have about 50% close rate on our demos. And so still there's 50% of those people that sat for an appointment, received a proposal, but didn't close. And a lot of times we just assume they went with somebody else or our product doesn't solve the problem, and then we stop follow up. There's a huge opportunity in these people that were on the brink of making a buying decision but didn't. And so often we can re-engage them as well. So we're going to talk about these three different points in which the pipeline dies and how we can improve at each of these. Now, most of you are familiar with the term speed to lead. If I get a lead that comes inbound, there was a study done by Inside Sales in, I want to say 2010 or 2012, that online leads that are generated, those that convert the highest, get a initial engagement or interaction within 5 minutes. And so you have a couple different windows of opportunity. Most will convert within 5 minutes, then 30 minutes, then 3 hours, and then it just falls off a cliff after 24 hours. This doesn't mean that they won't be buyers, but whoever can communicate with that prospect the quickest in the time that they're looking to buy something is most likely to get their attention and get them to convert. So that's table stakes. That's the basic thing. We have to all be doing that today. Speed to lead is important, whether it be they opt in, I send them an email, they opt in, I make a phone call, they opt in, I send them a text message. Something needs to happen to communicate with them quickly. Now, speed to conversation, this is really the key here. I was in the mortgage business in 2004 until 2013, 12. And in that mortgage business, we would buy shared leads. What this means is that someone would fill out a form like Rocket Mortgage or whatever, and then we would buy that along with 20 other companies. They'd cap it how many companies they'd sell it to. That was their claim anyway. But the first company to have a conversation with that prospect usually won their business. Because once I had an engaging conversation, I built some trust. They were more likely to work with me than anybody else, even though there's 20 people pounding the phone calling them. They just got tired of answering the phones. I already have a relationship with you. I'm going to work with you. And so speed to conversation, that is the key right here. And so when someone is opting in and requesting information, how quickly can I get them to a conversation? That's what's going to really change the game for your conversions. So here's 3 workflows we're going to talk about today. These can all be built in 1 week. This isn't super complicated. It does take a little bit of thought and a little bit of understanding of who my prospect is, what is their pain point, what are they trying to accomplish, how can I make that easier for them. But we're going to talk about one, the pre-call text plus branded calling. This will triple connection rates for most companies. Two, the no-show recovery. How do we set up a workflow that's automated to where if they don't show up, we're re-engaging them, getting to rebook. And then three, these dormant leads that either don't ever rebook or don't close after the proposal is received. How do we get them to reactivate and get back into our funnel? So we're going to start off first with the pre-call text and branded calling. In the chat, just let us know if you've heard of branded calling or pre-call text. Pre-call text is something that if you've heard our trainings before, about 2017 is when I was sitting with my brother. He's my business partner, co-founder. He passed away about 5 years ago. But in this time period, when we were working on how can we improve call connection rates, and again, this was 8 to 10 years ago when it was still a new problem of like cell phones starting to block phone calls of unknown numbers, etc. We tried to figure out how can we get people to answer the phone. So we thought about how do we engage with our friends and family. Well, I usually don't just pick up the phone and call friends and family during the workday because I know they're busy. I'll usually text them, say, hey, let's chat about this. And then I'll call them if they say, yeah, give me a call. And so I use the pre-call text in my day-to-day with my friends and family. And so I thought, well, how can we do this in business so that we can actually have a better engagement where we're more likely to get them to answer? So we're going to talk about that today, why the pre-call text is important. Also with US carriers, primarily so far with Verizon and with T-Mobile, they've adopted what's called branded calling. We'll give an example of that in a second here. So these two things combined really increase what happens as far as the call connection rate. So one of the things you got to understand is that people don't ignore sales calls if they opted in for information, but they do ignore unexpected sales calls. So if I request information from a company and I don't know who this is that's calling me, I get so many spam calls every day. I've had the same number for 25 years that I can't just answer every call that comes in. I'm going to get bombarded with spam or sales opportunities or whatever. But if I requested information, I don't want to miss those calls. But I often do because I don't know who it is until I get their voicemail, and then I'll try to figure out how to call them back. But 94% of unknown numbers go to voicemail. If you don't believe me, ask people around you. Some of you are like, when I was in the real estate and mortgage business, I had to answer my phone all the time, 24/7. It was kind of like, you don't want to miss a deal. But people that are not in those types of industries, they typically screen their calls. If it's an unknown caller, it's probably someone selling me something, or it's spam, or it's a scam, or whatever. I'm going to ignore it. With branded calling, it basically will show your company name with your phone number. So if I just requested information from your company and I see your company pop up like that, I'm going to be more likely to answer that. So this right here is a big way to increase your call connection rate. Now, here's the thing that we have to remember. When I see a name of a company that I just opted in to receive information from, that's familiarity, right? So if you look at an unknown caller, a phone number I don't recognize, they're considered a stranger. There's about 6% of those calls that get picked up just because some people answer all their calls all the time. I'm not one of them. And then there's 19% they'll pick up because they're acquaintance. So it's someone that I know is calling me, especially if it's a close friend or family, I'll probably pick up. Unless I'm in a meeting, I can't pick up. But about 19% of those pick up. And this is more of an acquaintance. If it's a name plus company recognized, they're going to pick up the phone because okay, this is someone in my caller ID. I saved their phone number to my phone. I'm going to pick up. Now, the expected callers, when I request information, and I know who the company is that's calling me, and there's that context of like I just requested it, there's a much higher pickup rate. You're going to about 24% of those people will pick up the phone. So the text message and the branded calling together allows us to go from a stranger, because they don't know who we are, they don't know they just requested information from us, to an expected caller. And that right there can give you a 3 to 4 times higher call connection rate just by having the ability for them to recognize this is context of I requested information recently or just now, and they're calling me from the company I just requested information from. And this is an example of the message that you can use. We don't want to be salesy in text message. We don't want to be like too wordy. It's very brief. Hey, John, this is Brett with Acme. I'm going to give you a call in a few minutes regarding your inquiry. When do you have my number? That's it. Now, here's the trick. If you can also seed in some sort of question that's relevant to your business or their pain or something that's very important for them that they might respond to. In real estate, I would ask, hey, I saw you inquired about this house we have listed on XYZ Street. Just wondering, what is your time frame for looking to buy? Is it in the near future and a few months down the road? A lot of times they give me an answer just to get me like basically to back off. But here's the key: by answering that message, what they would do is therefore tell me that they're engaging in a conversation, right? They're willing to chat with me, and their phone recognizes that there's a two-way conversation. Now, when I call, if I had my name in there, in this case, Brett has his name. When I call, the caller ID on their phone will say maybe Brett or maybe Trent, whoever that name is. And because they had an engagement with that phone number. So if I'm not using branded calling, the texting alone plus the reply from the person now opens up that their phone recognizes this is a known person that you're engaging with. Now we'll let that phone call come through as a known caller, and now we'll show the name as maybe Trent or maybe Brett. So this alone, even if you didn't do branded calling, also increases your call connection rate. Both together dramatically increase it because there's no misunderstanding what that number is that's calling them. Because even though I called and texted from the same number, sometimes people don't recognize that. It is much easier, but by having this pre-call text plus having a phone call with branded calling, plus if they responded, those things together are going to make the biggest impact on your call connection rates. And so here's the flow. I'll just show it to you. It's pretty simple. A lead is created in your CRM, an owner is assigned. What you're going to do is you're going to send a pre-call text, and then you're going to wait a few minutes. Some people wait 1 minute, some people wait 4 or 5, some wait 15 to 20, whatever you choose to do. It's just got to be enough to where it's close enough to them getting the text. They're probably going to see it within a minute or two, and then you're calling shortly thereafter. And if you're using the branded calling, that's going to make it to where even easier for them to recognize who's calling them and pick up. But we're going to call, text, and do that from the same phone number. That way, there's familiarity. A lot of businesses fail here. They use one phone number for texting, one for calling, and what that does is it creates a disconnect of who you are and your brand. And so what we try to do is keep those unified, where we're texting them questions, we're texting them content, texting them what they requested as far as a lead magnet, and we're also calling from that same number. That right there increases your call connection rate because you're engaging with them on the same number. You're not doing what spammers do, which is they change their number every couple of days to try to get you to answer. So that's something very important. This right here, if it's done right, can be done in a few minutes inside of your CRM. And we can help with that with customers that are like, hey, I don't know how to set this up. Cool, we'll send you a quick guide, and we'll also send you a video on how to do it. And for those that want, we can actually help them set that up. But this right here, just having a flow, a process to where your team is texting and then calling new leads quickly really increases that chance of them getting on the phone. So the average connection rate before and after pre-call text and branded calling, typically what we've seen is about 8% before, 6 to 8%, and then 22 to 24% is typically the after. And it's really about having that familiarity of the recency of the context, plus the branded calling, plus the text message that they're more than likely going to see if I text them and call about 5 minutes later. Those things are going to help you. This doesn't require that you increase the number of people on your team. In fact, some organizations can decrease the number of sales reps because they can have more conversations quickly and not have to beat the same list hundreds of times before they get the 24% to answer. And so what it does is it makes it more efficient for your sales team. This isn't increasing the number of leads. This is really just about how do I lower my cost to acquire a customer by increasing the number of leads that are actually getting into conversation. Now, one of the things that we recognize also, this is Brett's quote here, people don't ignore sales calls, they ignore unexpected sales calls. Now, this is something that I didn't believe at first, but then I recognized anytime that I'm in the buying mode, like if I'm looking to buy something and I'm doing research and I fill out a form, I actually do want to talk to that person. Why? Because if there's a pain point or something I'm moving towards that I'm trying to, get away from pain or towards pleasure. There's something that I'm moving towards or away from, and I'm actively seeking a solution. And so when I am actively in the buying mode or looking for solutions, that person isn't annoying me. They're trying to help me with my problem. So when I recognize that, I said, okay, yeah, the times I'm annoyed by people is when it's an unexpected sales call. I'm not really looking for the solution. I don't have the problem. They're calling me annoying. However, if you are generating inbound leads, you've hit a hot button with a pain or pleasure, and they are looking for a solution. They may not tell you that, may not want to be sold, but they do want to be sold. So people don't ignore sales calls. They ignore unexpected sales calls. If I come with a solution, you're very confident that I have the answer to your problem, you're more than likely going to pick up and want to talk to me. And so that's the key here. Keep that in mind. We are trying to break through that. We're getting ignored not because they don't want it. We're getting ignored because they don't know what it's about and who it is that's calling them. The second thing we're going to go over is the no-show recovery workflow. Now, what this means is like we all have this happen. I do it myself. I sign up for an appointment, schedule someone for a service that I probably need for one of my businesses, and then I don't show up. Why? Business got in the way, family stuff got in the way. I didn't realize I scheduled a time, there's double bookings, whatever. A lot of things come up. We don't go to the appointment. Does it mean we're not a buyer? No. Does it mean that we're not interested? No. Do we assume that? Too often, yes. So what we see is that a lot of times there's no process in place to re-engage those that missed that appointment. And so this is really expensive because this is a high intent buyer. They have spent time researching you, going through your content, going and clicking on the website, filling out a form saying, I want to talk to someone at your company. I know I'm going to be sold. I'm interested in being sold. And then if they don't show up, we ignore them often. And if we ignore them, and we don't re-engage them, we're not going to have an opportunity to sell them. They're going to go with somebody else. They're going to find a different solution, or if we're lucky, they might re-engage with us down the road. But that's pure luck we're relying on. So this is going to increase our cost to acquire a customer, and it's going to make it to where it's more expensive for us to do business. The businesses that do the best, they have the most growth and the highest success. They look for these small leaks in their business and they identify how can I improve this so that my cost to acquire customer goes down. If I have the lowest cost to acquire customer versus all my competitors, I can even underbid them if I needed to and still win and still be profitable. Ideally, you wouldn't have to do that. Ideally, you keep your prices where they are because you provide the service that's valuable. But by being able to lower your cost to acquire customer because you have better lead conversion, you now win. Now, just to reiterate that I mentioned earlier, when they ghost you on an appointment, doesn't mean that they're not interested. Oftentimes, probably about 12% of the time, they've changed their mind. Either they found another service that's better for them, or they decided, you know what, the pain wasn't that high. I don't know why I opted in. I'm gonna bounce. But most of the time, I'm going to tell you 88% of the time, they're still interested in a solution. They just missed the meeting because something happened in their kid's school, or they had a meeting that ran long, or there was an emergency at work. Something happened, but the buying intent is still there. So if we treat them like they ghosted us and just ignore them, then they're going to actually ghost us. They're not going to come back. So we want to make sure that we're actually following up with all these appointments, even if they no show. It doesn't give us their intent. Sure, 10 to 12% of the time that might be the intent, but most of the time they're still interested in the solution and they solve the problem. And here's the text that I would send just as a quick touch. This is the goal here is not to make them feel bad. I've had this happen where people make me feel bad for missing an appointment. I'm like, screw you guys, I'm not going to rebook. I had something come up. My life's important. You're trying to sell me something. I'm the customer. If you're going to treat me like a punk because I couldn't make a meeting, fine. I'm not going to come back. So we don't want to do that. We don't want the person to feel like, oh, you screwed me over. I had an appointment set here. I was waiting for you. You didn't show up. If you do that to people, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're going to be embarrassed, right? So this is a very quick, very brief. Hey, Sarah, we missed each other. No worries. Want to grab another time here. Post the link below. This type of a message is very brief. It removes that feeling of blame and doesn't make them feel like, oh crap, I can't show up with these people again. They think bad of me because I missed an appointment. We remove that shame and that blame and make them feel like, okay, yeah, come on back. I know you're probably still interested. Something came up, whatever. Now, here's what's going to happen inside your CRM. We're going to jump into like the behavior triggering. This means that as a sales rep, I do have to give some feedback unless we want to assume that everything's a no-show unless I click on a button. I don't like to do that. I like to have the sales rep click a button or do some sort of action to know that the person no-showed, right? If they attended, we're going to continue with our normal follow-up, assuming that they're interested and didn't buy. If they bought, we'd probably mark that in the CRM or we'd take a payment. And if they didn't show up, we'd mark that as well. Now, if there's a no-show, what we're going to have happen is that we send a text message, the one we showed there, and then if they reply, stop the follow-up, right? I want to have that human take over at that point. And then if they don't reply, keep going for the next 24, 72 hours, and then put them into a long-term nurture. And that's where workflow 3 is. We'll talk about that in a second. After they have shown interest, booked an appointment, but don't show up, I'm going to be pretty aggressive about long-term follow-up because I know that they have that pain and they may not have solved it right away. They may not solve it for another few months, but they're still there. Until they tell me I'm not interested, I'm going to keep following up. So at the end of the meeting, the time's reached, 10 minutes pass, they don't show up. I mark them as a no-show. It does the automation. Then I just let it do its thing. And as a sales rep, I'm back to selling. I'm not focused on that. I'm not worried about it. The system's in place so that I don't have to worry about it. It's going to automate it for me. They respond, then it comes back in my inbox. I take it over. Um, and what we've seen that this changes based on industry. There's some verticals that have a higher or lower conversion. But if you send that 5 to 10 minutes after the appointment and they didn't show up, about 34% of the people will reschedule within 24 hours. If we make it towards low blame, low like, hey, you suck, you didn't show up, you left me hanging. I'm not trying to use guilt, shame, blame. I just want them to feel like, hey, we missed each other. Let's get back on the schedule. What works for you? Here's my link. You will get quite a few that will rebook. Some will reply, but maybe not book, and they might have to get them later. But out of that, you'll get about 46% total with those that defer and book later versus those that book within 24 hours. I'm trying to keep on pace here. I apologize if I'm going a little bit fast on my numbers here. I feel like I'm behind, but we probably can be good on time. I want to honor your time. 45 minutes is what we told you guys, so I want to make sure I honor that. Here's the thing: missed meetings aren't lost deals; they're usually just missed moments. That's the whole point of this campaign too, this workflow too, is to get them to re-engage because we missed each other. Doesn't mean the opportunity's gone. Now, number three is the dormant lead reactivation engine. This is what we all would call a long-term nurture campaign. And some people do this in like evergreen long term. They've got thousands of emails they have going out. Um, Great. If you want to build that out, cool. Those usually get filtered into spam or into promotions and don't actually get read, but sometimes they do. One thing you can also do is have spurts of moments in time where you take your database, you reactivate them like once a quarter or every other month. We see this, for example, in the HVAC space. They do their spring tune-ups and their fall tune-ups, right? They'll do a broadcast out to the dormant leads, try to get them, hey, we're doing a special $39 HVAC tune-up. We'll do a free inspection, replace this, and this, whatever, and give you your filters as part of that $39. They do that kind of activation campaign, and it generates a ton of new business. And likely in the summertime, they're going to get a bunch of replacements once the air conditioning units start to go. So the key there is identifying, I've got a group of leads here that have not bought from me or haven't bought for a while, and I've got a recurring service, and I want to reactivate them. So most of your pipeline that is able to be reactivated is probably already in your CRM. If you've been in business for a few years, there's probably a lot of opportunity just sitting in there on leads that never converted. Um, if you consider your lost opportunities, you'll probably see that 1 out of 4 of them that maybe set an appointment for a demo or came to an appointment or met with you or talked to you about buying your product or service, but didn't, 1 out of 4 of them still hasn't probably bought. And within the next 12 months, you can get a lot of them to convert. And with the text message reactivation, it's pretty inexpensive to reactivate a dormant lead. You might send a broadcast out and might have to have like, go out before people before one of them converts. And so that conversion can be pretty high where you're only spending 10 to 15 cents, on if you can combine all the costs per reactivated lead just by doing that. And those reactivations then can result in lowering your cost to acquire a customer, and it's much cheaper than trying to get new leads. Now, we're always going to be generating new leads, new opportunities. That's part of business. But too many people leave their past customer list dormant and don't do anything with it, or their past lead list dormant. Now, dead leads usually means dead messaging. What I mean by that is if we change the messaging, we can usually get people to reactivate. If I use the same messaging over and over again, they don't respond to it. So if I'm saying just checking in, everyone's just checking in. If I'm saying bumping this to the top, everyone's doing that. It's kind of annoying. I'm like, nothing's changed. But if I say, hey, quick question, are you still trying to overcome X? And I pinpoint the problem. Hey, I saw something this morning that reminded me of our conversation. Cool. I mean, it makes them curious, right? And so these types of questions or text messages are meant to re-engage and to make them feeling a little bit like either they got that they missed something or they've been left behind or that they're curious to find out what you're talking about, right? And so when I offer this, like, should I close out your file? When I'm in the mortgage business and they haven't responded and I've been working on getting their deal approved and I feel like they're ghosting me, I can ask that, should I close out your file? And what that does is it puts them in a place of like fear of like, wait, I don't have another option right now. This might be my last opportunity. Maybe I should respond. So we like to think about the messaging. And as we progress in a funnel, as we progress in a conversion cycle, if I know my average conversion takes 30 days, I'm going to get a little more aggressive towards 30 days. I'm not going to be aggressive up in day one because I don't want to scare them off. But the longer we go along, the more aggressive my messaging will be. If I've got a 6-month sales cycle, there's no way I'm being aggressive month one, right? But as we get to month 5 and 6, my messaging changes slightly to kind of get them like, hey, it's time to move forward, make a decision. Now, here's an example of a re-engagement campaign. This would be spread out over a week, about 8 days. And they're all just short messages, right? And this would be something that they've got previous message history from me. They've received messages from me in the past. Now, I would probably add a little bit more to this if it was like they were from 3 to 6 months ago versus just a couple weeks ago. That I might add more context. Hey, first name, this is Trent with XYZ. Quick one. Are you still solving for this problem you're having? But these messages, brief but very direct, help to get the prospective buyer re-engaged by either getting the reply to a message. As you notice, we're asking questions, or at the last one, hey, I'm going to pull back. It sounds like you're not interested. And so what you'll see is that about 10 to 11% of people will respond to these types of messages. So over that 8 days, I can get a good chunk of my database to respond. So this is the rough idea or the flow of it. It's basically going to be built out in your CRM. In this case, we're talking about HubSpot. And you could do it to where it's like we take leads that haven't engaged that were over 30 days old. Now I re-engage them after 30 days. They finished one sequence or campaign. I'm going to re-engage these starting on Monday, go through to the following Monday. And with that type of campaign, my goal is to get these leads that were hot and interested a month ago. I've crossed my 30-day sales cycle, waited a couple weeks. Now I'm re-engaging them to see if they're still there, still warm. I'm gonna give you an example here of one of our customers. They took some dormant leads, about 8,400 that hadn't bought, been in their database for a while. They generated, I think it was about 915 conversations. I put a rough number there. I do know that it was around 140 deals that they're closing, and they expected it to be about 400,000 in EBITDA from that campaign. So when you think about that, a lot of what we do is focusing on taking customers or prospects that have either bought from us in the past but haven't bought recently, or new prospects that haven't bought yet. How do we re-engage them into making a buying decision now, even if it's been 3 to 6 months since they opted in? Some problems are solved right away, but a lot of the businesses that we work with, their customers don't get the problem solved for months or years. And so for them, having these longer term re-engagements makes a lot of sense, and it reactivates a lot of opportunity, a lot of revenue inside their business. Now, your next best deal may already be in your CRM. The reason I say that is you have to think about what do you have in your database that you aren't right now optimizing. I look at my previous businesses. A lot of times, like we had a real estate training business in 2007, 2011, during the time I did mortgages and real estate. My brother and I had this business where we'd go across the country. We did about 4 or 5 seminars a week in person, different cities across the US, and had our person that would go out and speak to the different groups. And basically, what he would do is present an opportunity for 3 hours and then ask for people to buy at the end. If people didn't buy during that 3 hour presentation, we did nothing. We didn't call them, we didn't email them, we didn't text them. They were in the room, 15% bought, the other 85% didn't buy. We did nothing. Looking back, that cost us millions of dollars. Now, we were young. I was in my 20s. My brother was in his early 30s. We were kind of like just figuring out business on our own. We didn't go to college. And so a lot of the times people don't realize there's millions of dollars in your CRM because you've got opportunities that weren't properly worked. You've got people that haven't solved the problem they came to you for. So I'm going to jump into the messaging side of things. Now, we see this happen all the time. And I'm going to go through these four. The reasons that most teams fail with text messaging in their sales process is one, they have generic messaging. Two is bad timing. Three, there's no ownership in the CRM. There's no accountability. Three and four kind of go together. We'll talk about that in a second here. But generic messaging, when I get a lead that comes in and I say, "Hi, this is XYZ. We help businesses grow. Are you interested?" Very generic, right? I don't talk about them or the pain or their problem. But when I make it more personalized, "Hey, Sarah, I saw your inquiry yesterday. I'm talking about a specific thing they did on bulk pricing. Mind if I send a quick voice note? Or mind if I send you a quick video?" Those things make it feel much more personal, like a person is texting them, not a business. So generic messaging and too formal or too salesy doesn't work in text messaging. I can write long format copy in an email, present it, make it all beautiful. That's great. That doesn't work in text messaging. You want to have more of engagement that leads to a conversation. So you want to make it feel like it's a one-to-one text, not one-to-many. Now, the other thing is we see is bad timing. Now, this is pretty well known for most of us. Like we've experienced bad timing. If someone texts me a message at 8 p.m. at night on a Friday, I'm probably not gonna be too happy about it if it's a business text, right? So the best windows for texting are usually midweek if you're doing B2C or B2B. B2C has a little bit more of a variation, but B2B, you want to kind of be in these windows. You want to avoid Friday after 4. Anybody know why? Nobody's wanting to work after 4, right? They're like checked out. They're already planning for the weekend. And Sunday or Monday before 9, probably shouldn't bother. Saturday, we can get some results, depending on the business you're in, but don't recommend it for most businesses, but some do have success on Saturday. And you always want to send it based on the prospect's time zone, not your own time zone. We also have noticed that opt-outs are extremely high when you text after these hours. So if you're texting at night or on the weekends when people are with their family, on the Sunday, they're having dinner with their family, they're more likely to opt out versus if they get a text midweek. So 3.5 times more likely. Be careful about your sending time frame. Now, 3 and 4 here are ownership and accountability. Now, what I mean by no CRM ownership is that we're not creating a contact record with the text message conversation inside of the record inside of HubSpot, for example, and there's no one that's actually owning that conversation. So all the messages should be in the CRM. Back 10, 15 years ago, salespeople would use their personal cell phone numbers, right? They'd be texting prospects from their personal number. Nowhere in the CRM, there's no record, no data. They leave the company. What happens to those conversations? They leave with them. Now there's no excuse for that. With the technology today, all the texting, all that, the voice conversations can be all logged into the CRM. And so we want to make sure it's everything's there so that anybody can step in at any point in time and see the history, see the context, understand what's going on. And the other mistake that people make is there's no accountability. Um, so they're not measuring like what are they sending, what is the response rate, what is the conversion or booking rate. They're just basically sending and hoping that the campaign worked well. So tracking is very important. With text messages, you can use trackable links. So I can know this link is unique to this one person. If they click it, I know who clicked the link. If they click the link, I want to put them in a different follow-up campaign. I'm going to call them more aggressively. Why? They've showed high intent. So accountability and ownership are very important so that you can get the most out of your campaigns and you can identify what's working and what's not and do more of what's working. Now, we want to give you guys a gift for being on today. One of the things that we've come up with is our sales SMS playbook. It comes with these 3 workflows we talked about today. It's free for you guys that have registered for the call. If you're getting this replay from somebody else, you can always go to our website and request a copy of this as well. It's the sales SMS playbook. It's been updated for 2026. You basically be able to take these workflow templates, add them to your CRM. It's written for HubSpot, but any CRM could use those. You might have to use different terminology, different language. If you want, we can also help you just come up with a better process for your own CRM. If you're using something different, let us know and we can adjust it for you a little bit. We are also going to give you the trigger map cheat sheet, help you with your timing cadence and then the mistakes that people are making so you can diagnose that, do that diagnostic before you actually put a campaign live, making sure you got your timing right, that someone's owning the conversation, that you're tracking it, and making sure the messaging is proper. In order to get that, you don't have to do anything. If you registered for this webinar, you'll be getting a copy of that with the replay. And then we also want to offer this to everyone that's on the call, a 30-minute audit, basically, a review of your workflow. And our commitment to you and our agreement is we're not pitching on this. This is strictly just like we're giving value, and if you see value, you'll probably ask us for how we can work together. But we're not trying to close you. We're not trying to pitch you. We're going to share with you what's working. We've done this for years, where the more we share, the more that comes back to us, and that's just one of the philosophies we have in business. Is that as we treat other people with like respect and being direct with them, not trying to play games, that we often get people that want to come and work with us. And so you'll walk away with basically your pipeline leak diagnostics, saying where are we dropping off in conversions. We'll give you some recommendations on your workflow to improve that in your CRM based on your team size, and then give you an idea of like how long should this take you to implement it if you did it yourself. If you're interested in that, you can go to yeticonnect.com/audit and you can book your audit there. We just try to limit it to 10 audits a week. They do take some time. There's some back and forth on our side as far as getting more details on how you do your current workflow and process of sales. But that's how we do that, is just book that through the audit link there, and then we'll jump on a one-to-one call with you. If you have any questions, we'd like to open up for questions. I beat the clock by 2 minutes, so I feel pretty good about that. Usually don't beat the clock, and so that feels satisfying for me. I don't know if you got any questions during that we want to cover, or if anyone else has questions they want to share now or ask now. You can also email Brett or I. Our emails are on the screen there if you have a personalized request or a question that you want to ask directly. Mine is Trent at YetiConnect.com and Brett is at Brett at YetiConnect.com.
Thanks, Trent. We did a couple questions throughout that I want to make sure we hit on. First one I can take here, which is people are really used to texting in B2C contexts. Maybe it's your plumber or your electrician is texting you about appointment confirmations. And the question is, can this work in B2C as well?
Hey,
So
you
for
mean?
me, I've been managing sales teams for the last 5 or 6 years in B2B context. And always when one of my sales reps had a uh, person miss a call, a deal going cold, always the first question I would ask is, have you texted them yet? Because even though it's B2B, we're still selling people to people. And ultimately, people live in text more than email. And it's a great way to deepen the relationship with your prospect or customer. And also to make sure you get quick communication because emails just get buried so quickly. So all these can work with B2B or B2C. And the nice thing is you can systemize it through your CRM, like we talked through.
Yeah.
So this is where marketing can help sales make sure that they're keeping up on prospects before they go cold.
One thing to add to
So
that, I didn't cover this, but this probably be important is TCPA compliance in the US is very important. Like we've been preaching that since we've been in texting for the last 15 years, 14 years. Um, Compliance is very important, and businesses that don't comply make it worse for everyone else. And so what we do is we try to help our customers have compliant opt-ins for texting, and we do it in a way that's actually better than most people because our opt-ins are seeded with benefit statements. So I'll give you an example. I had a lead magnet as a video, like it's a pre-recorded webinar. And on Facebook, when I get people to opt in, on the lead form, I would add in a question. Would you like to receive this video immediately by text message? So there's three things there, right? One, I'm getting opt-in because I'm asking for permission. Two, I'm saying, would you like to receive this video? I've already sold them on the video and the copy. They want my video. And immediately is also a part of the benefit statement. They want the video immediately, and they want that sent by text because I'm offering it that way. They don't know that I'm also going to send it to them by email because I'm just defaulting to what's your name, what's your email, what's your phone number, and then the question, would you like to receive this immediately by text message? And so it could be a PDF, it could be a video, whatever it is you're sending. You can say, would you like to receive this thing immediately by text message? And we have other disclaimers and disclosures below that. But the content there they're focused on is, yes, I want to get this now. Yes, I want what you're offering me. And so when we seed in a benefit statement with the opt-in, we have a much higher opt-in rate. We have about 85% opt-in rate on those types of questions. And so even in B2B, you can use those types of opt-ins. And more than likely, they're going to be giving you out their personal cell phone number or their work cell phone number if they work cell phone number. And you can usually get them to say, yes, you can text me. We did this with about 100,000 leads. We downloaded the leads, ran them through a tool that verified the phone numbers, and 90,000 of the 100,000 had cell phone numbers, and 85%, which is 85,000 of those, gave us permission to text them. So that was a pretty huge opt-in for a B2B offering. So you can do it in B2B. It just requires that you think about what is the benefit I can give them to disclose their cell phone number and give me permission to text them. And then in your CRM, you can track those that said yes versus no and follow up with those that said yes with text, voice, and email. And those that said no, just voice and email.
yeah, definitely compliance, especially on B2B. Uh, you got to get that opt-in. Last question here. I know we're over time, but one more I want to get answered. Just generally kind of hot topic with AI. How do you see AI starting to supplement and improve the personalization, or how can people use AI today to help make this more effective?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things that we're launching pretty soon, probably be end of Q2, beginning of Q3, is taking context of past conversations by voice and text, getting the transcripts there, plus the stage that they're in your sales pipeline, plus the data you have in your CRM, and then changing the context slightly or the message slightly to follow up with prospects. So instead of using like in the old days, like we would take, I've got a campaign, day one, I'm gonna send this message, day two, this, and this. And the emails or the texts were completely scripted, right? Now I can say, day one, I'm gonna send this message based on all this context I have on this person, based on the UTM, based on where they came from, what lead they saw, what lead magnet they responded to, what ad they saw, plus the conversations we have in the history with them, if they had voice conversations before, or if they texted us before, who they talked to, all that context can be now be grouped in and then used to then send a personalized follow-up via text message. And so that's one of the things that we're working on launching is context-aware automated follow-up. And if we do that, like that just changes how people feel like, oh, this is a real person texting me, and they're not expecting it to be an AI. One of the downsides to AI is it does feel like it's AI still if you get into an automated conversation. I'm doing something on my, I have a roofing business. I'm doing something a little bit different as far as testing some of these tools we're using. One of the things I'm doing is having it to where it has the context awareness, plus I'm delaying these messages because AI will respond within seconds, right? So I'm delaying the message intentionally. So it has a 25 to 45-second delay that's variable. That way it doesn't feel like they're chatting with an AI. So there's a lot of things that we're doing to make it to where AI is useful and not hurtful. Because our philosophy since 2012, when we started our company, was how do we leverage the power of automation without losing human touch? Because human connection, human touch, and especially in high ticket sales, B2B sales, is all about relationship. And so I don't want an AI stepping on my toes, what I previously said. So I want the AI to have context awareness and be able to say what I would say. And through training, it gets better and better. So those are some things that we're working on. Plus, I have been testing AI voice to where when someone calls in, if someone on my team called or texted that person within the last 48, 72 hours, whatever time frame you want to add, it will say, hey, it looks like you're calling back Mike, who called you yesterday. Would you like to connect with him now? And then it's routing them quickly versus having to go through call trees and ask, press buttons, all this stuff that in the past was annoying. So there's a lot of things that are coming with AI that are useful, but we always try to look through that lens of can we do this in a way that helps create better relationships and not make it feel like you handed me off to AI, I'm pissed off, opportunity lost. So that is something that's very real concern is using AI in a way that it doesn't diminish the relationship or interfere with the relationship you're creating with that person.
Yeah, definitely. It's got to be a tool to use to help, but not totally replace the human in the conversation. Awesome. Well, we're at time. Thank you everyone for joining. You will get that playbook here. We'll send it out in the next 24 hours or so. And please, if you have any more questions about this, want to go through an audit of your current texting process or funnel process, we'd love to chat with you more. Feel free to send us an email or respond to the SMS playbook that we're going to send out here shortly. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. Take care.